In this last election, before you ever get to Russia, there were 868 fewer election sites in black, brown, and poor white communities. So Trump won only by 80,000 votes in 3 states. There were hundreds of thousands of black, brown, and poor white voters. That's racism. And in those same states, those same 22 states, I wish I had my map with me. If you put a map up of all of the states that pass voter suppression laws, guess what you also have? The same states have anti-union laws. The same states have refused to raise the living wage. The same states have denied health care. The same states have the highest level of poverty. The same states where you have voter suppression targeted at minority and African American and Latino and white women voters are the same states that are regressive when it comes to the issues you care about, like Wheeler County, Georgia. The poorest county in America per capita is 65% white, 33% African American, but their representative there who gets elected time and time again to Congress votes against the very things that would help people in Wheeler County, like health care, like living wages, like unions. But he feeds them this division rooted in systemic racism. Many of the folk that get elected, 10 of the 12 poorest states in America are so-called red states, where politicians elect the very candidates that vote against the very things that uplift working poor people and the poor. They run on issues like being anti-gay and anti-abortion, anti-prayer in the schools, and pro-guns and and by the way, I'm country, so I have a gun or two. I used to hunt myself, but we are going to have to start looking at the totality of people's public policy. Racism, what am I talking about? Systemic efforts to divide and conquer and deny opportunity. That's what racism is. There are 8 million more poor white people in America than there are poor blacks. There's 5 million more poor white people in America than there are poor black. Now, there are more poor black people within the race, but in overall numbers, there are 8 million more. And the question is, what are some of these politicians doing in the various states where you have more poor working white people than you have black, and yet they get elected and then vote against the very policy that would uplift those communities? That's how we got here. And you know, when you talk about racism as a systemic ism, my brothers and sisters, racism is a lie. It is an ontological lie. It is a suggestion that some people are less than others. And racism is not just something that somebody who happens to be white can. I know black people that are voting for policies that are against black people. They so internalize racism that they now support that stuff. But my grandmother taught me, if you scratch a liar, you find a thief. Recently, I was called to go out to West Virginia because West Virginia, I think 67% of the people voted for Mr. Trump, but they didn't. But now they're marching because their health care was at threat a few weeks ago, and some of them said to me, "We couldn't believe, we didn't think he rolled back our health care." I said, "But Grandmama taught me, scratch a liar, you find a thief." You can't trust somebody that's anti-immigrant to be right on unions and right on TPP and right on the things that matter, because underneath their framework is deception. And that's the last thing that got us here. Ridiculous lies. You know, lies like ACA or Obamacare is totally bad. Really? 20-some million people getting health care that didn't have it before. Now, it is bad from this standpoint. It's not universal health care that everybody ought to have. Yeah, now, it is bad from that standpoint. Right. But this stuff that they just recently tried to put before. And isn't it strange that the only reason, Fred, they didn't get the bill passed to repeal Affordable Care is because the people that wouldn't vote for it wanted to make it meaner. Huh? You know, these lies, like Jeff Sessions supports voting rights. I mean, that's what got us here. Lies, lies, lies. People believe lies like Gorsuch, who was just confirmed, is going to be fair. Really? Have you seen his ruling against working people before he was confirmed on the Supreme Court? You know, lies like a wall between us and Mexico will save us. Really? Then why did we tell Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall? What kind of ethics is that?